Toji Fushigoro, a mercenary, an assassin for hire, a doting father, and a kind husband. He is also obviously a Maki feat stealer. Toji Zenin or Fushigoro is a lot of things, but overall, he's just kind of a bum. Toji is a confusing character to me, not because of how complicated his character is or how interesting his character is, not because of how his existence kind of changes the laws of causality like he's a friggin berserk character, not even because his clothes defy the laws of this universe, but let's be honest, that's more of a JJK thing than a Toji exclusive thing. No, the thing that confuses me about Toji is how the fandom at large views him due to how Gege chooses to portray him in almost juxtaposing lights throughout the story of JJK. As a result, Gege makes some of Toji's more devious actions that are purely evil and or self-serving appear not as bad as they actually are, because of how quickly Gege switches the camera from his heinous actions and then towards Toji's sad point of view or his backstory or how good a father and husband he used to be. You see, in the story we are presented, Toji is a merciless killer in all the times we pretty much see him, and if he's not a merciless killer, he's an absolute goober who seemingly wants nothing more than money to gamble with. He's either killing children for monetary gain, trying to kill teenagers for pleasure, trying to kill teenagers to prove a point, or he's just losing money at the races. Despite all that, the fandom views Toji in a very different light. Well, at least some parts of the fandom do. They seem to view him as a once doting father and caring husband. This contrasting interpretation of Toji comes from a handful of pages and moments throughout the series, as well as from volume extras in the manga. Gege doesn't help this perception of Toji from the fandom, when he draws Toji with a literal halo, as well as putting Toji in the same afterlife as Gojo, despite literally headshotting children for money, who are, also in this pseudo-heaven. Toji appears near the child and woman he murdered in cold blood for money. Gege's favoritism has been made so much clearer and obvious from little things, such as him calling Toji Papaguro in Q&As and stuff. Like, brother, he shot these people in the face. Why the hell is he in the airport with them? He literally commits some of the most heinous acts you can do as a human, literally killing a child strictly for money. Yet Gege, being completely and totally non-biased, draws him with a halo. Twice. Brother, what the fuck? This is without mentioning the fact that he tried to sell his own son to the Zen'in clan, but he was just trying to give Megumi a better life. Megumi had the potential to be a great sorcerer. Lol. And he knew that if he was just left with Toji, he wouldn't be able to realize his potential. So Toji tried to sell Megumi to Nobito. Okay, sure. I'll get into it shortly, but that is a very stupid argument, to be completely honest with you. So this kind-hearted father, who forgets the name of his child, or at least the person who named him, attempts to sell his child. Oh, but he's just truly a misunderstood father. Bruh, he isn't, and for some reason the fandom has sometimes excused and misconstrued these actions because of the lens that Gege puts on the camera when it's pointed towards Toji. Brother, let me be 100% upfront with you. I like Toji, I really do. He is a cool and interesting character, and he's a pretty cool unit in Phantom Parade. Both versions are at least decent. Check out my other channel down below. But some fans of Toji genuinely defend his actions because of how Gege portrays them, despite how sinister and malicious these acts are. Gege's framing makes Toji stans love Toji almost as much as Gege himself does. But that stupid cat loves Toji more than anyone except for maybe Sukuna. Like, this dude will look for any excuse to draw Toji. Like, Gojo vs Sukuna, final battle. Gotta draw Toji. Oh, we need to break Gojo out the prison realm? Gotta draw Toji. A flash to the afterlife, which is portrayed to be some sort of a limbo that allows you to choose what path you go to next. Gotta draw Toji. Just so this doesn't turn into a nonsensical rant, which it pretty much is at this point. I'm not gonna lie, it will be a bit of that going forward. Let's go through some of the depictions of Toji at key points in the series, and how Gege's portrayal of these actions helps to fuel this confused dichotomy of how Toji is misunderstood by some of the fandom at large, between Toji's actions of what he actually commits and how the fandom views said actions and defends them. Moment number 1. He forgot Megumi. During the Hidden Inventory arc, we are given the most prolific appearances of Toji throughout the main story of JJK, and as a result, some of Toji's most questionable moments appear. First of which we see during his conversation with Shu Kong in chapter 67. Kong approaches Toji, asks about his progress regarding the assassination on the Star Plasma vessel. After asking about the job, Kong asks Toji, "Oh, how's Megumi doing? Toji's child." To which Toji responds,
"Who's Megumi?"
Like, he genuinely forgets his child's name here. He's such a bum, he's at the tracks, waiting for people to wear Gojo down so he can sneak attack him, all the while he's completely forgotten who his child is. And it doesn't finish there. Chapter 73. After the initial scuffle between Toji and Gojo, which of course goes in Toji's favour, he starts his fight with Geto, and he pretty easily dispatches him. After this said scuffle, Geto is left alive on the ground, sliced to pieces, but alive. But as Toji is about to leave and collect his paycheck, so to speak, he insults Geto, belittling the fact that Geto and Gojo lost him despite them being born with cursed energy and really busted cursed techniques. They lost to a monkey without cursed energy despite all of their blessings. And that kind of gets the cogs turning in Toji's head, since the word blessings in Japanese is Megumi.
Blessing. Megumi.
He hears himself say the word and reminds himself that, oh, he has a child. Since it's done for comedic effect more than anything else, you kind of give it a pass because of how Gege portrays this moment. But he literally forgot Megumi, the child that he will eventually stab himself in the face for. He forgot their name. It's not the worst Toji father moment, but it goes to show how little he thinks of Megumi, let alone Tsumiki. She isn't even on the radar. Moment number 2, Toji's demise. After the second fight with Gojo, when Toji gets turned into an accurate Shanks cosplayer, the last thing Toji thinks of isn't both of his children. Well, granted, only one of them is his actual progeny, and Tsumiki is just kind of one of his random old flames children, but you know what I mean. He did live with Tsumiki for a while and just doesn't even care at all about her, which is kind of depressing, but he remembers his wife holding Megumi as a baby. By this point, Toji has abandoned Megumi for literal years, to the point where Megumi doesn't even remember his own father's face when Gojo first finds him. This is further highlighted in Shibuya when Megumi doesn't remember Toji from how he actually looks. He just kind of gets reminded of him when Toji actually speaks to him and mentions the Zen'in clan, similarly to how Gojo did upon meeting him for the first time as well. He was thinking about his wife when he dies, and he asks Gojo to look after Megumi. Not Tsumiki, she doesn't matter. Megumi said he hasn't seen his father in years, so some people think Toji dipped more than likely not too long after his wife died. However, he lived with Megumi and Tsumiki a little while before abandoning them, so I'll explain in the timeline later. The only thing you can argue that is decent on Toji's behalf is him entrusting Megumi to Gojo. However, this isn't a purely positive thing. This is more like Toji kind of attempting to correct his previous actions, in a sense. He still abandoned his children. Not only did he do that due to the supposed grief from his wife's passing, even though he abandoned Megumi years after his mother died. I mean, here it says Megumi Mama died not too long after his birth, and we see in extra manga stuff that Toji lived with Megumi and Tsumiki until Megumi was at least going to school, so he wasn't immediately grief-stricken after her death. He also kept Megumi as a bargaining chip due to Megumi being his, quote, trump card against the Zen'in. On top of that, Toji clearly didn't care about Tsumiki at all, as she wasn't mentioned at all when Toji passed, or even thought about, both times. But on top of all of that, if Megumi ended up in the Zen'in clan after Toji's death for whatever reason, Tsumiki would have followed him. She doesn't really have much of a choice since she'd have been a child and wouldn't want to have parted with Megumi, and as stated earlier, Tsumiki's mother abandoned Megumi and Tsumiki as well. That would leave her with no choice but to also join the Zen'in clan if possible. And I don't really need to say this, but being a woman in the Zen'in clan isn't exactly ideal, to put it lightly. With Toji's demise in both occasions, he does the only two altruistic or fatherly things towards Megumi. When he dies first, he tells Gojo about Megumi, and the second time, he has to literally empty his skull so that he doesn't kill Megumi. But both of these times he's just attempting to make up for his previous actions, and not mega successfully. Him telling Gojo was just him trying to fix his mistake of trying to sell Megumi, kind of, whilst at the same time he did believe that Megumi would have a better life there due to his potential as a sorcerer. Tsumiki be damned, I guess. And the second time, him stabbing Playful Cloud into his grey matter, is just because he started attacking Megumi and has to literally stop himself from killing Megumi through Toji killing himself. Granted, the second time Toji dies is a little bit more wholesome, but at the same time, it also goes to show how much of a bum Toji was, since his own son didn't recognize his face. He only recognized him after the Zen'in clan is mentioned. Toji isn't Tsumiki's father, but he sure as hell didn't step up. He is the father that stepped down. He just left these two children in squalor. I'm sure his wife, who he clearly loved so much, would be so proud, abandoning not just their child, but another random person's child as well. Moment number 3. Selling a child. Now here's a moment that genuinely annoyed me with how the fandom interprets it. When Toji gets revived during the course of the Shibuya incident, and he just kind of makes his way through Shibuya without a care in the world, we get a flashback that shows us Toji initially attempting to sell Megumi to Naobito. Now the defense of Toji and his actions here is that he truly believes that Megumi will have a better life in the Zen'in clan. He will be able to reach his potential. Lol. He will reach his potential as a sorcerer in the clan, and given that Toji also believes he'll have a curse technique, as a result he'll also believe that Megumi will be fairly high up in the clan, unlike Toji himself during his youth, because he was treated incredibly poorly due to him not having a curse technique or even cursed energy in general. That makes sense on the surface. He's trying to give Megumi a better life. But if it was purely out of fatherly love, and it was something he truly believed wholeheartedly, one question arises. Why didn't he just give Megumi to the Zen'in clan? Why didn't he just give Megumi to Naobito? Answer. Toji is a bum, whilst he has some sort of feelings towards his son. He very much wants to make a bag more than ensure his child's future. It's just that this flashback is immediately followed up with Toji stabbing himself, which is a much more noble thing than selling his son. And since it was shown from Toji's point of view, the reader and viewer sympathizes with Toji as a result, instead of recognizing these combinations of actions as being very complicated, as they show that not only is Toji a bum who sells children, he abandons, and when he saw Naobito, chances are he'd probably already abandoned Megumi by this point. He does also have some feelings towards his son that we see through his sacrifice. and some piece of joy at the fact that he didn't end up joining the Zen'in clan, because he very much has mixed feelings about it. But just because he stopped himself from killing his son doesn't make him a good father, no matter how many times Gege calls him Papa Guro. Now, the volume extras give us a tiny bit more to chew on, so to speak, in regards to Toji acting as a father, as well as how he acted overall after his wife's passing. So, from the character profile, as well as the extras from the Geto and Toji fight, we found out what Toji was like with women after Megumi Mama died, as Gege names her. He was an absolute man-slag. He, quote, doesn't have much money, so he wanders from woman to woman. This is further explained with the mid-chapter notes from the Geto fight. I first thought Papa Guro's response was a bit gentle, but I remembered he's a pro at freeloading off women, so I left it as it is. Brother, he cannot be so messed up from his wife's death that he both abandons his child, whilst also sleeping around with women to pay for his food bill. Like, dude. Gege also said that Toji calmed down thanks to Megumi Mama, which is nice, but as soon as she dies, he falls back into old ways. That's how Megumi even ended up with a sister. Toji was so broken up, he works as a toy boy to fuel whatever lifestyle he wants. So sleeping around with women, oh yeah, he's really broken up about his wife's death, sure. Yes, of course, everyone has, their own grieving processes and they grieve differently, but come on, man. Megumi is the only vestige of this wife left in the whole world. Yet he leaves him and Sumiki to fend for each other in squalor, whilst also using him as a potential meal ticket in the future when he sells him to Naobito. The extra manga stuff also shows us the only instant of Toji actually acting as a father towards Megumi. So in this extra, Megumi gets into fights. We see more so of this in the Origin of Obedience arc when Megumi was in high school and all the flashbacks and stuff, where we see Megumi beating up people in school. In this extra manga volume flashback, Megumi is explaining to Sumiki that he got into a fight, etc. And Toji just kind of chimes in and says, oh, if you ever get into a fight, make sure to always beat up two people, because then you'll be viewed as breaking up a fight and you won't get in trouble with the police. To which Sumiki is obviously annoyed because that's kind of goofy logic, but sure. It's yet again played off as comedic, but it's just a very strange parenting thing. But whatever, it's still really weird because just in this flashback it shows that Megumi, Sumiki and Toji, at least all three of them, lived together for a certain period of time. This is clearly years after Mamaguro's death, and despite that fact, Toji still abandons Megumi, abandons Sumiki, and leaves them to fend on their own whilst they are still children. Because it's never stated that Toji sends the money and they're not living in a nice place, and on top of all of that, apparently Toji just spends money as soon as he gets it, so I doubt he's sending it to these children he does not care for. Despite that, there are parts of Toji's character that you can paint as him being genuinely altruistic and somewhat fatherly. Him asking Gojo to look after Megumi, you could argue he merely did this just because he was thinking of his wife more so than his child. Because I mean, if I was Toji's wife, I'd be pissed that he literally abandoned his kids for literal years, but he did try to somewhat rectify it in the end, whilst also entrusting his child to the person that killed him, a random affluent teenager. He left his child with this dude. I'm sure this will go well. Here's the thing. I don't have an issue with Toji being a multifaceted character. I am fine with him being an absolute bum who gambles, abandons his children, sleeps with older women for food and board, whilst at the same time being this sorcerer killer who kills more so for pleasure and proving a point more than the money itself, whilst also at the same time still having a weak but still present bond with his son that he did abandon and also tried to sell. I am fine with that. That is an intriguing character innately to me. However, due to this combination of the author's framing as well as the reader's lack of comprehension, they choose to paint Toji as this misunderstood vagabond who wanders the world after his wife's death. Despite the fact he didn't immediately abandon Megumi. He lived with another woman and her daughter just so he could abandon all of them instead of just abandoning Megumi. And on top of that, seeing how much Gege likes to portray this literal weapon for hire wearing a halo, I feel like it confuses the fanbase even more. Like, people need to take a step back and look at Toji's actions in a more objective light. There isn't much throughout the series that is fatherly or remotely father-like. I mean, the closest act we see of him being a father is him entrusting his child to a teenager, him telling said child to beat up two people instead of one, and him stabbing himself in the face. So he isn't exactly Maze Hughes or anything. I mean, he literally forgot his own child's name. If you can look at me in the face and say Toji was some sort of well-meaning but misunderstood father, whilst he is also the same dude who consistently abandoned, forgot about, and attempted to sell his son, you're genuinely stupid. Or just a Chainsaw Man fan with a lack of comprehension. In conclusion, me making this video has just made me feel more and more sorry for Sumiki, of all people. She isn't even related to Megumi by blood. She is abandoned by her mother for no reason we know of, as well as being abandoned by Toji, despite the fact that after Mamaguro's death, Toji did sleep around, which is how Megumi, Sumiki's mother, and Toji lived together for a while, despite the huge grief Toji was supposedly going through. And seemingly because of her relation to Megumi, as well as Toji, which isn't even a blood relation, as I say, it's just more of a chosen family member sort of thing in regards to Megumi. She is marked by Kenjaku, and then later controlled by Yorozu, all for her to die at the hands of Sukuna, wearing her brother's skin.
Don't you think that's weirdly fucked up?
In the end, Toji is a mentally weak man who uses the death of his wife as an excuse to commit acts that are some of the worst things you can do as a human being ever. And the fandom can attempt to justify these acts and paint Toji to be this misunderstood father and husband, but at the same time, these acts are completely indefensible. Selling his child and abandoning them for so long they forget his face, not caring about Sumiki, sleeping around, killing children for money, and then failing and dying because of his own ego. But I do enjoy his character, it's just that I hate how a lot of fans misinterpret his actions because of Gege's framing due to his favoritism. But as a character, Toji is really cool. I like him. Granted, he's not in my top 5 or even my top 10 for that matter, but he's still pretty sick. I personally believe this image, this single image of Toji thinking about his wife and child before his death, is the main reason for people's misinterpretations and softening of their views of him as a character. These misinterpretations are then compounded due to Gege kind of sending him to the peaceful afterlife with his victims, which kind of makes his actions feel as if they had significantly less weight in my opinion, and makes all of his previous actions all the more justifiable and easy to push away to some readers and watchers. But with that being said, that's all I have to say about Toji and how the fandom views him. Cheers my doodles, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.